Ziua, stimați telespectatori DC News TV, stimați cititori DC News și Defense Romania, un oaspete cu totul și cu totul de excepție astăzi în studioul nostru. Este vorba despre Excelența Sa Reuven Azar, ambasadorul extraordinar și plenipotențiar al statului Israel în România. Bună ziua, Excelența voastră, vă mulțumim că ați venit în studioul nostru.
Bună ziua și mulțumesc foarte mult, Bogdan, pentru această invitație.
Thank you so much, sir. We start the interview because we have many issues to discuss. You are going to leave soon Romania, going to the most populated country in the world, in India, but your achievements in 2 years in Bucharest are enormous, incredible, I would say, and many people in Bucharest, all the leadership of Romania is impressed by your achievement here, and they are not just words. You are going to tell us the achievements, incredible achievements you made in a very difficult period. War in Ukraine, war in Middle Orient, everything happened, and you did a milestone in the relations between Romania and Israel. But we'll come very soon to these issues, Your Excellencies. Let's start with what's going on in Gaza and in the Middle Orient. French people call it Proche-Orient. You know, after 7th of October, when this huge disaster occurred, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the war cabinet of Israel decided to crush Hamas, the terrorist organizations. After almost 9 months, 10 months very soon, how is the situation in Gaza and in Israel and in the Middle Orient?
Well, thank you very much, Bogdan, for this question and this introduction. The Middle East is under the shadow of Iran, because since the Arab Spring occurred in 2010, and this vacuum happened once many Arab countries collapsed, Iran immediately used this vacuum in order to introduce her proxies in the region. And it armed them with huge amounts of weapons. So you have today terrorist organizations like Hezbollah, like the Houthis in Yemen, like Hamas used to have, equipped with weapons that even conventional armies in Europe don't have. Ballistic missiles, advanced drones, weapons that are very dangerous, and we have seen now, as a result of the 7th of October and this unprovoked attack of Hamas against Israel, we are seeing all these weapons deployed and actually being fired at Israel. So this didn't change our resolution of pursuing the goals that the government put forward. And that is to degrade, to completely eradicate the military capabilities of Hamas and to bring back the hostages. So far, what we've been able to do is to destroy about 24 battalions of Hamas and PIJ inside the Gaza Strip. So as of today, Hamas cannot operate as in an organized way like it used to before, because it no longer has the chain of command and the infrastructure it used to have in the past. So we have managed to neutralize their capability to fire missiles towards the center of our country. We have killed around 15,000 Hamas terrorists. We have destroyed hundreds of kilometers of tunnels, including strategic tunnels.
50,000 Hamas?
15,000
okay.
15,000 Hamas terrorists. We believe we've managed to neutralize, to hit, to wound another 15,000.
I see.
And this is in addition to the infrastructure, as I said, of hundreds of kilometers of tunnels that some of them had weapons factories, command and control centers, the intelligence headquarters of Hamas that was actually embedded under the main office of UNRWA in Gaza. So imagine you had a UN organization on top and Hamas intelligence apparatus feeding from their electricity and their communications, and the entire Hamas operation embedded under UNRWA, embedded under hospitals.
We were shocked to find out that they were under hospitals as well.
Yeah. It was a method. Look, the system of Hamas is very simple. They abuse any international rule. And actually they use the fact that we have rules in the civilized world in order to create an edge. So for them, ambulances are just a means of transportation of terrorists. For them, hospitals is just a place in which you can place a headquarters of your organization. And even now, when we have managed to actually get Hamas out of the places they were before,
yes,
they are embedding themselves inside the humanitarian areas that we have designated for the people that we want to put out of harm's way. So actually, it's a method of Hamas to try to survive. It's a method of Hamas to try to bring the highest toll they can of civilians, because they believe that if the civilian toll goes up, then there will be pressure on Israel to stop the war. So they are using the hostages, they're using their own population in order to try to stop Israel from pursuing its goal. But we are not going to stop. We're acting according to international law. We are only targeting military targets. Unfortunately, in many times, there are civilians involved because Hamas are trying to hide behind them. But at the end of the day, what is happening is that Hamas is on the run. We have managed to bring back more than half of the hostages, as you know. Some of them were in deals we've done, and about 27 of them were in military operations in which we rescued them. Unfortunately, 20 of them dead, 7 of them alive.
And the chief of the Israeli Special Forces was killed in action.
Yeah, one commander of one special forces was unfortunately killed in action. And we want to reach a situation in which we will bring more hostages. There is a very clear path that we have devised, that President Biden has adopted, that the UN Security Council has adopted, in which we're going to have 3 stages. And we are now trying to reach the first stage. But what we are saying very clearly is that we keep the right to continue this struggle until we meet our goals. And that means that we are not going to allow Hamas, following a ceasefire, to regroup and rebuild their capabilities in Gaza in order to attack us again. And Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about this yesterday when he delivered his 4th speech, an historical speech.
It's more than Winston Churchill, who only had 3 speeches in the American Congress. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was the 4th time in the American Congress. That's impressive. And talking about this, what do you think was the main idea of the speech of Prime Minister Netanyahu in front of the American Congress, which he greeting him like no other foreign leader was greeting in the American Congress?
Well, I think that the Prime Minister stated, and I think the people expected him to state, that this struggle of Israel right now is the struggle of the civilized world. It's not just the struggle of Israel. It's the fight of civilization against barbarism. And this is what he wanted to portray, to say that those people that are attacking Israel, their target is not necessarily Israel. What Iran wants to do is to bring down America. Okay? They always speak about the great Satan, that's the United States, and the small Satan is Israel. So for them, Israel is stuck in the middle of the Middle East, disrupting their plan to take over the Middle East and to take over civilization. And we are there in order to defend civilization. This is what the Prime Minister told yesterday in his speech to Congress.
He said this definitely. He stressed the fact that, he underlined the fact that it's a war of the civilization against barbarians. He also said that Israel and the United States have the same goal, but I would say that all the civilized world, including EU, including Romania, my country, have the same goal, to have civilization, not barbarians, I would say. Do you see any perspectives that the war in Gaza will end sometimes?
Well, I think that this is an ongoing effort, and I want to draw a comparison. If you remember, in the year 2000, after we offered the PLO, headed then by Arafat, to establish a Palestinian state on 90 4% of the West Bank and Gaza, he refused it and he launched a war of terror against Israel, in which 1,000 Israeli civilians were killed. We fought back and we retook the cities of Judea and Samaria, of the Palestinian Authority, of the West Bank.
Yes.
It took us about 3 years to regain control of the situation and to bring stability without any suicide attacks. This is a struggle that doesn't end in one day, because Hamas is embedded into the population. And if we want to create a clear path for de-radicalization and for building a hope for the Palestinian people with a different leadership in the Gaza Strip, we have no choice but to continue to fight Hamas. And it will take time, because of the reasons I mentioned before, because Hamas is embedded inside the population.
It's very difficult to fight, yes.
Because Hamas actually indoctrinated the Palestinian population in the 17 years that they have been controlling the Gaza Strip after they took forcefully the Gaza Strip from Fatah. They've been indoctrinating the youth, and it's very difficult to change that. And, you know, I am not fooling myself. There's no force in the world that is going to come and solve the problems for us, because no other international force in any place in the world is going to fight Hamas for us. It's not going to happen. We have to face reality. We never requested any country to fight for us. We have to do it for ourselves. But if we are not committed to defeat this tentacle of Iran in the Gaza Strip, then the other tentacles will become much more forceful, and Iran will know it's just a matter of time until they will manage to completely choke the state of Israel. And that's why we have to cut this tentacle, and we must not allow Hamas to regroup and regain power in the Gaza Strip again.
We'll talk immediately about Iran. A few days ago, it has been signed a treaty between Hamas and Fatah in China.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? We were surprised by this.
No.
And our mind stressed to what former American Ambassador Adrian Zuckerman told us in October 8 in an interview, that there is an axis of evil, China, Russia, Iran, against the civilized world. And the fact that China interfered with in this business in Middle Orient, Fatah and Hamas, I guess it surprised the whole civilized world.
Well, I think that the Chinese are being taken into a ride by the Palestinians. Okay, they are not experienced enough yet with Palestinian politics, and believe me, this kind of meetings we had for the last 17 years. We had at least 20 meetings like that in Moscow, in Riyadh, in Cairo, in Qatar, wherever you name it. There is a civil war within the Palestinian society between the Muslim Brotherhood, which is Hamas, and the nationalists, which is Fatah. And they will never reconcile, because Hamas wants to eradicate the nationalists. Hamas doesn't have an agenda of cooperating. So unless Hamas releases the hostages, unless Hamas changes its ideology, which is not going to happen, there is no chance for a real reconciliation. It's a facade. It's just a show. So this is so evident. And we've seen it only in the last few months, when some people from different families and some Fatah intelligence officials tried to go to the Gaza Strip. Do you know what happened to them?
No.
They were killed.
They were killed?
They were murdered by Hamas, yes.
But they signed the treaty in Beijing.
Yes.
But when the officials of Fatah went to Gaza Strip, they were killed by Hamas.
Absolutely.
So you're not afraid the fact that Fatah will go in the same path of terrorism as Hamas?
I am very concerned, because the Fatah movement, instead of distancing themselves from these terrorists,
it should do.
Instead of opting to join civilization, they are just being dragged in the current of extremism. because of the popularity of Hamas in the Palestinian street following the 7th of October. Unfortunately, Hamas still enjoys huge popularity both in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. Maybe less now that a lot of people, and we are seeing it in social media, a lot of Palestinians are complaining about what Hamas did. But those who complain are being murdered too. So it's very difficult to deal with that, and Fatah has made, again, the wrong choice.
On the 7th of October, they burned alive babies, a few months old babies. Do you think that they become popular with this kind of thing? Or
yes.
People are afraid?
Unfortunately, I can show you footage. Show you footage. First of all, it's in the polls that Dr. Shkaki has done from the Center of Research that he has in Ramallah. You could see the trends very clearly. A majority of the Palestinian people support what Hamas did. Look, we have a huge problem in the Middle East. We have people that believe in extremist views. We have people that have been dragged under this sentiment, this fascist sentiment that actually you can destroy Israel, that the Western civilization is weak, that Islam is on the rise. You know, these people are very dangerous. They are gaining momentum because they receive money from Iran. And by the way, they receive money also from Qatar as well. And we are in a challenge. If we don't stop this kind of indoctrination from not only prevailing in the Middle East, but coming also to Europe, we are in very deep trouble. And we're going to see attacks like the 7th of October again in other places.
Talking about Iran, do you think that it will be a war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, we are trying to avoid a war. Look, every democracy, any democracy,
yes,
doesn't rush to do wars because we know the price. We know what is the price we are paying now after this terrible attack on the 7th of October. Okay? And our army is a conscription army. The people, we have civilians in the army fighting now for the last 9 months. People that are students, that are engineers,
doctors,
that are publicists, doctors. We don't want to have a war. We are trying to create a situation in which we reach an arrangement by which the Radwan forces of Hezbollah, which are estimated at the number of 15,000, get away from the border in coordination with UN Security Council 1701. And if that is achieved and the Hezbollah forces withdraw from the border, we can have peace. But if these Radwan forces that actually are meant to do exactly what the Nukhba forces of Hamas did in the 7th of October, if they stay, this is completely unacceptable for us, and we will have to take military action to push them away.
But the most important thing is that you do your best trying to avoid another war in the north of Israel with Hezbollah, which is a very important issue. But what about the Hutu minority, which attacked a few days ago and killed a person in Tel Aviv?
Look, this was actually, one of the things that drew my deep disappointment was the fact that the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, didn't say a word while the Houthis were firing more than 200 drones and ballistic missiles towards Israel and were disrupting international trade, terrorizing shipping, civilian shipping in the region.
It's a disaster now.
When was the first time he said he was concerned? Is when Israel retaliated. This is completely unacceptable. If we really want to defend our system, our international institutions, if we want to defend international law,
including
we
the
need
United Nations,
the international institutions to stand by our right of self-defense. Unfortunately, this is not happening. And this creates a situation by which we have to work with those partners that we have, the United States, and fortunately, some Arab countries in the region that are standing with us and actually helped us to foil the biggest attack of missiles and drones in the history of humankind that happened only a few months ago when the Iranians fired at us.
Jordan was one of these countries.
Jordan, we have the Saudis intercepting some of the Houthi missiles that are
Saudi
flying,
Arabia,
the Americans, the French, the Brits. So we have to work together with our allies to create a regime of security in the region that will help us.
Your Excellency, a very tough question.
Yeah.
Are you worried about the relation with Turkey? Turkey is very important also in the Black Sea region.
Look, Turkey is a very important player, is a member of NATO. Unfortunately, what we have seen in the last 20 years since Erdogan came to power is that Turkey stopped to be a reliable partner in NATO, and Turkey started cozying to the Muslim Brotherhood. And only last week, we exposed, the Shin Bet in Israel, exposed an organization, a terror cell, working in the Jericho area that was planning to abduct Israeli citizens for ransom. This terror cell was guided and financed by the Hamas representative in Turkey. So today, Turkish soil is being used in order to promote and finance terrorism against Israel. That's very, very serious.
It's a little
very
bit
serious. And this is actually supported by Erdogan. This is something that is completely unacceptable, and we want the Turks to change that policy, but to tell you the truth, I'm very skeptical that this will change as long as Erdogan continues to rule Turkey.
Your Excellencies, you have very tough commercial relationships between Turkey and Israel.
Yes.
How come that the politics go so wrong when the economical relationships are so good?
Well, it happens when people start, instead of thinking logically, they start introducing destructive ideologies, romantic, extremist ideologies, and introducing them because of political reasons. Look, I don't want to enter into Turkish politics. This is not my expertise.
Yes.
I know that the
only
Turkish
relations
economy
between Israel and Turkey.
Yeah, the Turkish economy is in a very bad situation. This decision of Erdogan didn't go down well in the throats of the Turkish business community. We are working our ways in order to deal with the situation. Israel was importing billions of dollars worth of goods from Turkey. I'm sure that we will be able to restore this relationship, but some people have to come back to their senses.
I see. What about the relationship between Israel and Egypt? You did many years ago huge achievements in this relationship. How do you see Egypt now with what is going on in Gaza?
Well, the relationship with Egypt is very solid. We have developed several lines of communication and cooperation that are essential for the national interests of both countries. The first is, of course, the intelligence cooperation we are having around the situation in the Gaza Strip. Egypt is facilitating our efforts to, advance our goals in the Gaza Strip. The second is the fact that we are supplying Egypt with very precious natural gas that is essential for the energy market. And we are cooperating with Egypt also in other fields of trade, agriculture, etc. Egypt understands that the challenge that they face is one that doesn't allow them to cozy or to play around with these extremist ideas.
Yes.
And they have taken a very harsh hand against the Muslim Brotherhood because there are 100 million people in Egypt that need to be fed every day, and they want to concentrate in the development of their country. We respect that, and we have very good connections with Egypt. We have, of course, our differences with them.
Yes, okay.
But this relationship is very solid, and it didn't actually, it didn't change during this, in the aftermath of the Hamas attack. On the contrary, we are getting our dialogue with our neighbors much deeper because we understand now that the stakes are very high and the threat from these extremist forces against the well-being of our countries is very high. We have a forum of multilateral cooperation in the military field under the command of CENTCOM, the command of the Pentagon in the region. They are meeting regularly in coordinating meetings, and all this effort, for example, in the foiling of the Houthi attacks and the Iranian attacks from the air, are being done as a result of this coordination. It's very difficult, by the way, to coordinate with so many air forces. It's a very
Which normally they don't cooperate. It's not like NATO.
It's a very tight place. Our country is a very tight place.
Yes, I know. 22,000 square kilometers.
Of Israel, United States, Britain, France, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc. And then you have also all the air force of the rivals. You have a heavy presence of the Russians, and then you have Iran, Syria, and all that. So in order to manage this aerial space, you have to be on alert, you have to have sensors, you have to be coordinated, because otherwise you will be subject to destruction.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that Saudi Arabia put down missiles which were shot by Hutu minority, which it's very important because Saudi Arabia has a very strong voice in the Arab world. And normally before the attack, the relationships between Israel and Saudi Arabia become more and more tight, more and more strong, stronger and stronger. Is the same thing today?
Yes, actually, it's much more. Look, the Saudis, they are defending their own interests. They are not doing it because they care necessarily about Israel. They cooperate with us because it's in their interest, as it is in our interest.
And they made huge investments in Israel.
Well, I don't know regarding economic investments of the Saudis. We've seen some UAE investments in Israel following the Abraham Accords. But what we are seeing is a situation in which, by self-interest, this is becoming a natural alliance. And you have I think I spoke with you in the past about the iceberg.
Yes.
Okay? So in times of war, maybe the iceberg goes down a little bit and the tip of the iceberg can be hardly seen. But believe me, that the iceberg becomes wider and wider.
That's very good. Sir, what is the relationship with Russia? You just mentioned that it's not an allied country for Israel right now.
Well, it's very challenging because as a result of this rapprochement between Iran and Russia, which are not natural allies. You know, Russia also feels threatened by radical Islam, but they've been seeking Iranian assistance when it comes to supply of drones, factories of drones, and factories of missiles that are being built in Russia with Iranian assistance. We are seeing a situation in which Russia is promising Iran different promises when it comes to supply of advanced weapons. This is very dangerous. This is going to change the balance of power in the region, and we are very concerned about that. We are, of course, expressing that concerns to the Russians, and we will have to figure what to do about it.
Sir, I would like to talk with you about your incredible achievements which have been done in the last 2 years when you have been the ambassador in Romania. I just been to a meeting and I find out that Elbit, a very well-known company from Israel in the military field, because unfortunately we talked a lot about war, has 6 factories in Romania. They want to build another 2, and it's the biggest exporter company of military equipments from Romania to the world. It's incredible in this cooperation between not only between military and intelligence between Romania and Israel, but also this economical cooperation.
Yeah, indeed. Look, my main focus when I arrived here, I assessed the situation and I mapped 5 projects that I called my 5 flag projects.
Yes.
To advance projects that could have the greatest added value to the bilateral relation. And the first and foremost was exactly what you said in the defense industry. We have to look at the situation at the larger context. We have a situation right now that in Europe, all the European countries are building up their defense systems, are building up their armies as a result of the Russian threat.
Yes.
Now, we have, and all of them, by the way, are knocking on our doors to purchase technologies that are relevant for the threat that they're having. So the sales of the Israeli defense companies have gone up tremendously. We're talking about $50 billion of orders were already made. And many of them,
billions.
Yes. And about a third of them are coming from European countries. Even before the war, we were actually going to scrap about 200 tanks, old tanks. And 2 European countries came to us and said they want to buy them. So the gap, not only in high-tech, but in low-tech, military equipment in Europe is huge. But what is going to happen is that in the next 5 years, Europe is going to build up their capabilities.
Their military capabilities.
Yes, they're building, and of course they want to build it domestically.
Yes.
So we have an interest. I think Romania and Israel have an interest. Romania, I think, has an interest to build military industries on Romanian soil. And Israel, these companies that you mentioned, Elbit and IAI and Rafael and others, they want to open factories in Romania as well, because only by opening factories on European soil they will be able to continue selling to NATO countries according to NATO standards. And that's why we have a window of opportunity that is incredible. So yes, Elbit started with factories a long time ago. By the way, Elbit was built in Israel by Romanian Jews.
Yes.
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 So
this is why I mentioned
so we
it.
have
Yes, true.
we have a very special relationship. We speak the same language. We have great engineers in Romania, and what is needed, what is required in order to build more factories is for Rafael to win the tender on the defense, missile defense here in Romania. If they win the tender, they will be, and they have excellent offers and excellent equipment, they will be able to establish a factory here in Romania that will supply the Romanian army, but then can become a hub for other armies as well.
Like it happened with Elbit, and not only Elbit. Romania has many Israeli companies on its territory doing all very well, looks like.
Yes.
How is it possible? Normally the Romanian administration is not very performant, unfortunately.
Well, look, we
are very much the same.
Yeah, we are not perfect either.
1 million Israeli people have the origins in Romania. Yeah. And many of them, they keep good ties with their...
So we have about 1 million Israelis with some kind of Romanian roots. Not all of them speak Romanian, unfortunately.
Yes.
But
now I understand they started, many of them, to recall Romanian language
so
after
we have
7th
we have a common heritage, and if we win
the Israeli anthem, it's made by a Romanian, if I may say so. It's a popular song in Romania, and it's the national Israeli anthem. So
that's right.
It's huge ties between the two countries.
So we have a great opportunity on the defense industry. I hope that on top of the advanced drones that Elbit is building here, we will be able to build here missile defense systems. We will be able to build here satellites if we manage to get in a contract from the Romanian army to build a satellite here. So the prospect is amazing. I've been talking with a lot of people. So this is not, it's a teamwork. It's not just a personal matter of an achievement of an ambassador. It's the achievement of 2 countries that want to work together. And I believe that we can do a lot more than that we are already doing. So this is number 1.
Military.
Number 2, I looked here at the high-tech sector. Romania has a pretty robust high-tech sector with about 9% of the GDP, with very good legislation and very good engineers. And the challenge that I've seen is that in Romania, although you have very good startups, it's a challenge to rise up from a startup to become a unicorn, like UiPath.
$1 billion. Yes. Israel has more than 100 unicorns.
A little bit less, today about 90.
Because they sold probably 10.
Yeah, it depends on the fluctuations on the market, but basically there was a big crisis.
One unicorn, Israeli unicorn, was about to be sold to Google for $23 billion.
Yes, they backed
just
up.
a few. It's backed up because they say they will value more.
Right.
If I may say so. Yes.
Right. So I brought here a venture capital company called Arieli Capital. We convinced Raiffeisen Bank to join this program. They are going to introduce a scale-up program for startups. The idea is that you enter into a scheme by which this company, which is a developing arm of a huge fund in the United States, about $1 trillion, Arieli Capital, they are going to help them, as they did already in other countries in Europe. They did it in Italy and in other Baltic states. They are going to invite them to join this program to try to see how they can help them to become a unicorn. Unfortunately, because of the war, we had to change the location. They are not going to open the scale-up program in Israel. They are going to do it in Milan at the beginning of 25. But this is an idea that actually got a lot of enthusiasm from different people in the sector, including Raiffeisen, including Dragoș Stanka, who is a main initiator, together with us, of this program, and the American Chamber of Commerce. So I hope that I'm not going to watch it happening because I'm going to be in India, but the program is ready, and we hope that the Romanian startups will jump on it and will join.
You had an important contribution in this program.
So I basically introduced the idea and brought Arieli Capital here. The third field is the field of water. For years, Romania thought that it's abundant in water, and to a large extent, it still is, because the quantities of water that you have, especially in the north of the country, are very abundant. But in the south,
it's a problem.
It's a problem, and the similar problem you have in the entire southern European continent: Spain, Italy, and the Balkans. Okay? Now, the conventional solution that people want to introduce is bringing water from the north to the south.
Yes.
But guess what? The European Union doesn't agree to that. And it didn't agree to finance projects to bring water from the north to the south. Why? First of all, they don't want more farmers. They already have enough farmers in the European Union. Second, they don't want more carbon emissions. Okay? Third, they don't want to degrade nature by pumping more water from rivers and taking more water from natural reserves. So what is the solution? In Israel, we didn't have any choice because we cannot bring water from the north to the south, from the south, we don't have water. So what we did is we started purifying our sewage water. And in Israel, today we have agriculture only because we are purifying the entirety of our sewage water, and we are sending it to the fields, and we are growing 70% of our crops with purified water. So there is a pilot project in Buzău, headed by Mayor Constantin Toma. He actually got consent from the government to receive 10 million cubic meters of sewage and purify them. He achieved financing from the European Union to do a feasibility study, and we have invited an interministerial team from Romania that was sent by the Prime Minister's office by Ms. Roxana Munzatu to Israel last year. This interministerial delegation came to Israel, saw how the system works in Israel, from the purification stations to the field in which the farmers are working according to the regulations of the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Health.
Only by purifying water.
Yes. Now, in Europe, there's still a lot of reluctance to go on this solution, because people consider it a hazard. They're not used to have to deal with this kind of issue. They just want fresh water. But the European Union understands the entire context, and is willing to finance with billions of euros cities and countries that will start purifying their water, not just to throw the water into the river, but to use them for secondary use, because
for the agriculture.
It's not just going to solve the problem of agriculture, it's going to bring down carbon emissions. Okay?
And so, climate as well, because it's green. It's not a desert anymore,
right?
As it is the southern part of Romania.
Right. So this is the other thing that we are, the third thing that we are doing. The fourth is in the field of tourism. Finally, after a lot of effort, I've managed to convince some stakeholders here in Romania to invite a group of tour operators from Israel. Israel is a very, very small country with a very high number of population.
10 million people now.
And this is only growing. So because we are small and because the country has become pretty rich, a vacation in Israel is very expensive. So an average family goes abroad for a vacation at least twice a year.
Because it's cheaper.
Because it's cheaper, because they need to have some recreation. And my job is to try to supply them a good place to go. Now, especially after the war, after the 7th of October, we have a situation in which 1.5 million of Israelis that were going to Turkey are not going there anymore.
Because of the relationships which are cold.
So the untapped potential here in Romania is huge. If these tour operators come here, they see the potential and they do the contracts with Romanian companies, we'll see here, instead of 150,000 tourists that we saw last year, we can see 300,000, we can see 500,000, easily. This will bring billions of dollars to Romania.
And cultural exchanges between the two countries.
Of course, because this is a relation between people to people. Of course, you're right.
And many other Israeli investors, I know they want to come and invest and they feel home. Many of them, they bought apartments in
there is a lot of investment in real estate, there is investment in traditional industries, there are different kinds of investments.
But tourism, it's a very big issue for Romania.
Yes. And the last but not least is a project to approve exports of processed meat from Romania to Israel. You know, I've seen here that Romania has been pretty frustrated that it hasn't been able to export processed goods.
Because it has to be kosher.
No, it does not anything to do with Israel. Because of the situation in Schengen, because of the fact that you are not part of the terrestrial Schengen, it's less cost effective for companies from abroad to come here and produce and then export them back to European countries or to other countries. Okay, and Romania is a power when it comes to export of wheat. By the way, we have signed an agreement to supply wheat in time of emergency with Romania, for which we are very grateful. Our Minister of Agriculture came here, but he also came here to grant the veterinary permit that will allow Israeli companies that are interested in importing meat to Israel to establish here a kosher line of slaughtering. Okay? So if we get the veterinary approval, and that was a very painful bureaucratic process that we had to do to bring the experts here, then I was promised by the minister himself that after a delegation from the Veterinary Services Romania will come to Israel in November, Romania will be finally approved after it passed all the thresholds.
So how long it took the permit? How long?
We are working on this for the last year. So,
but the slaughters, kosher slaughters, probably would be made by Israeli investors.
Yeah,
so what is the problem?
Okay, so I'll try to explain in the shortest way I can.
Yes.
In Israel, we have demand for fresh meat.
Yes.
Okay. We don't have enough sources. We are bringing some live animals from Romania that are being grown in Israel,
which is not going to be permitted anymore by EU transporting live animals.
It doesn't have a very bright future because of
it's not a bright future. Yes.
We are bringing kosher meat, fresh kosher meat from Poland, but it's not enough for our market. So the idea is that some Israeli entrepreneurs talked to me when I arrived here. I interviewed them, and they told me, "Look, we are willing to invest this money in order to bring here the rabbis that will do the slaughtering. we will just make a contract with a slaughterhouse that already exists in Romania, and let's start exporting meat. But guess what? The veterinary service in Israel didn't approve it because they didn't approve the Romanian veterinary services. So the veterinary services, we entered into a process of answering a questionnaire. A delegation came here and checked the veterinary services. It approved the labs of the veterinary services, and there were some things that were missing, especially when it comes to the slaughterhouses. So now, after Minister of Agriculture Dictor came here 2 or 3 months ago, they agreed that by November a delegation will come to Israel and Romania will be finally approved. And then it will be up to the entrepreneurs to invest the money and start. This is the business of about 50 million per year. And I'm very optimistic that we will, after we get to the finish line, I'm sure we're going to get to the finish line, this business will start and Romania will start exporting meat to Israel.
And you're going to transport this by plane?
Yes,
probably.
Well, yeah, because it's fresh.
It's fresh meat about that.
Yeah.
Talking about planes, it's not enough planes between Romania and Israel, definitely.
Right.
Maybe you can do something.
I did. I'll tell you what I did, okay? Because I called the companies myself.
I see.
And I asked them, why aren't you increasing the number of flights? And they told me very simply, look, first of all, we don't have enough planes, and we won't enter into the adventure of purchasing and renting more planes if we don't have a consistent sell of seats all the year round. Because it's very easy to do charter in the summer. For example, now we are going to start charter from Haifa to Constanza for 2 months. But no, this is what we need it the entire year, all year round. So the companies told me, I cannot tell names, but they told me, look, if you bring me somebody that will sell for me the tickets, then I will do it. And that's why I went to the tour operators, because the tour operators, they can sell seats, and they can sell hotels, and they can do packages much easier. So if the tour operators enter into contracts with the aviation companies, then we're going to have more flights. So instead of having 2 or 3 flights per day, we can have 5 or 6 or 7. Now, I remind you that in Romania, you have new airports that are very attractive. And they are ready to pay incentives. For example, last year, before the war, the mayor of Cluj paid 75 euros per ticket. And instead of paying 150 euros per ticket, the Israelis were paying 75. They were coming to Cluj in droves. So we can create these coalitions. What we need is just to work to bring the people together and to untap that potential, which I said is really huge.
Yes, you have new airports in Tulcea and Brașov, for instance. Right. This policy of incentive is very important. What about in the cultural field? You're very rich. Yeah. In this, even the Day of Israel is normally organized in the Opera House of Bucharest, and it's always impressive with the cultural shows you're presenting.
Well, thank you, but that is only the tip of the iceberg. What is really happening is that a lot of people in Romania and Israel have cultural contacts.
Yes.
So you can see
human contacts.
In the Sibiu International Theatre Festival. Every year we'll see Israeli groups. You will see it in the UNESCO Festival.
Yeah,
and
orchestra.
We are also doing additional things. Last year, even though the war, the beginning of this year, even though the war was still going on, we managed to bring here a very special group called Nalagat. It's a theater that employs people with disabilities. Blind people, deaf people, and they have a very successful theater in Tel Aviv with what we call the dark restaurant, in which blind people serve the food. And we brought them with the help of the Romanian National Bank to Bucharest, and they did several shows in the Teatru Evreiesc de Stat, and they did some. So look, I can go on and on. Every year we have books translated. We have a Jewish film festival. The cultural relations are really amazing. We saw the Yiddish Spiel Theater from Israel came to Romania. We are having different schemes of cooperation in jazz, for example, jazz festivals, electronic music. You name it. It's very rich.
Everywhere. It's
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
And we are going to launch. Our group is going to launch in autumn a special talk show, Mosaica, with Tea Haimovic. She has the advantage that she's both an Israeli citizen and Romanian citizen, which will promote the culture and the connections between Romania and Israel. But you are also, I understand, want to promote a site, a very special one.
Yeah, look, the heritage, the common heritage is a heritage of hundreds of years.
Yes.
Okay? And we have a lot of people in Israel that after after World War II, people were busy, the survivors of the Holocaust were
That's
busy in constructing their lives. And now their children and their children's children are looking back at their roots, okay? And many are very curious to see where did their grandparents
Where my
came from.
grandparent was born.
Yeah. So, for example, we had a few months back the head of the foreign relations of the IDF, a very high official in the Israeli Defense Forces. He came here for a ceremony and he went to Bakau to see the cemetery in which his grandparents were.
My colleague Tudor Curtifan attend the meeting in your house with
Right.
the chief of IDF.
So what we decided to do, we invested not a lot of money, about 5,000 euros in a cooperation with Felicia Waldman from the Bucharest Jewish Studies Department, Bucharest University, and they are going to introduce into a platform the information about the heritage of the Jews in Romania, both in Romanian, in Hebrew, and in English, not only for Israelis from Romanian origin, but also for Americans from Romanian origin to come and do the research and encourage their visit. So this is going to be just the first stage of the project. We want to do a second and a third stage in which the site will become interactive and people will actually be able to also get answers. But it's just a plan. But we started with this small investment and it's going to be launched in the coming months. Heritage is very important because really we have common roots. Jews,
That's true.
Romanians.
From 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, at least 1,000. That's the record. I think that the first record of Jews in Romania were
the legion, which was brought by Emperor Traian in Romania, was coming from the region of Israel today. That's why the roots are much deeper. Are you living with a little bit of sadness, Romania, sir?
Well, of course, because Romania really received me with open arms. It was really an exquisite experience. My wife actually got pretty pissed off at me as I decided to leave this wonderful place. We enjoy here the people, the culture, the opera, the views, the geography. I went twice to the Danube Delta. I went to Suceava. I'm going to Maramuresh. I went, of course, to all the great places in Transylvania, to the Iron Gates in the Danube. I tried to. We love nature, and we traveled as much as we could to uncover the real beautiful places that your country has. It's really an amazing country, both the people, the atmosphere, and the natural gems. And the architecture. So we enjoyed very much. And from that perspective, yes, I'm sad that I'm leaving.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a huge challenge with India soon, but you need to promise us that whenever necessary, from time to time, you'll give us an interview, your point of view, via Skype from New Delhi. That will be very interesting for us, sir.
Well, you can rest assured that the ambassador that is replacing me is a very good entitled person. His name is Lior Ben-Dor, and he will be coming before the end of August. And I wish him all the best. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy him as much as you enjoyed, hopefully, my staying here.
Yes, definitely. It was a big advantage for Romania for having you here, sir. Thank you so much for the meeting. Stimați telespectatori, vă mulțumim foarte mult pentru că ne-ați urmărit. Multe informații internaționale și mai ales pe relațiile dintre România și Israel acordate de Excelența Sa, ambasadorul extraordinar și plenipotențiar al statului Israel în România, domnul Reuven Azar. Rămâneți alături de emisiunile noastre, ele continuă. Mulțumesc. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Aici, radiodcnews.ro. Un radio care se citește. radiodcnews.ro